Forward. It is perhaps one of the most important inputs in fighting games, and I don't know how to use it. My main game, Guilty Gear Strive, has a dash macro, and a really good dash macro at that, so I never really got used to manual 6-6 dashing. And it has gotten so bad, in fact, that I straight up refuse to play games that don't have a dash macro anymore, which is a problem because that's like every game I want to learn. So yeah, it's time we fix that, as today I'll be learning how to dash. Before we go further, I guess I should probably explain what exactly I mean by learning to dash. I can do the input, obviously. The only problem is that it feels unnatural. Doing the input quickly feels awkward, and there are just so many instances where I just walk. So yeah, in reality this is just a video of me learning movement without relying on shortcuts.
Now, while I could try and do the challenge in Strive, that sort of defeats the whole purpose of this. So instead, we're playing Plus R today.
Most of this depends on muscle memory. Being able to do the input without thinking too hard about it is most of the challenge. So I started by simply playing a bunch. And it was rough. The dash macro brainworms were definitely at their strongest at the start, and not being able to move around effectively was frustrating. Movement is fundamental to fighting games. I mean, if the characters didn't move, there would be no game. But you don't really notice this until your ability to move gets neutered. In order to help build muscle memory a little faster, I did a few practice drills, mainly IADs and dash blocking. These helped to slowly get my fingers more used to the motion, and after a day or two, I was already starting to feel much better. And as I got more comfortable with moving, I found myself enjoying Plus R a lot more. The game felt a lot less frustrating than when I had previously tried to learn it like a year or two ago. And that's no coincidence now that it didn't feel like I was fighting my controller just to move. Bad movement is the root of many frustrations at the early stages of a fighting game. Namely, feeling like you're not in control. I mean, there were countless times in the past where my opponent would put me in a bad situation. I'd try to air dash out, but due to my incompetence, I'd just jump in place and look like an absolute buffoon. You see, what I'm trying to say is, it finally felt like I actually started playing the game instead of just mindlessly button mashing. Even though I was still mostly button mashing. So, now that I started feeling a little bit more comfortable doing manual dashes against a CPU, it was time for a stress test in real matches to see whether or not everything I had learned would crumble under pressure. And it mostly stayed intact. There were a few fuck-ups here and there, but 9 times out of 10, I was fine. And I think the reason I was able to get it to stay together in real matches so quickly is because movement is really easy to learn most of the time. However, that doesn't mean it's simple, and that's the beauty of it. Movement is easy to pick up, but difficult to master because of the endless applications it has. Movement is a mind game. One of the core aspects of neutral is getting into your desired range, and movement not only lets you do that, but it also lets you bait your opponent. The instant air dash is another great example, a very rewarding approach option that forces your opponent to stay alert lest they get blown up by a jump in. Let's just say I was abusing this option in particular quite a bit. And once I started to learn a few setups for offense, movement made another appearance. There's the universal mix-up of using backdash to bait throws and DPs, but there's also another option exclusive to the air dash fighter genre, the air dash high-low. By jumping and then doing either a delayed air dash into air normal or an empty land low, you are able to turn a simple aerial movement option into a staple mix-up of the genre. And that's without even mentioning all the character-specific movement options and how those interact with universal ones. Basically, what I'm trying to get at here is that movement is about a lot more than just moving, and how you choose to use it is entirely up to you. So, we made it. After an embarrassingly long time of not being able to fucking dash, I finally made it. But I'm far from done with learning how to move. As previously discussed, movement has a ton of applications, but it also shapes the way we play. First of all, most of the subgenres of fighting games exist because of the differences in their movement systems. But even within the same game, movement defines playstyles. Two players can have access to the exact same moveset, but the way they move around changes how they get to use that moveset. For example, an aggressive player who moves more rapidly uses faster attacks like jabs, whereas a more passive player with much more restrained movements throws out a lot more pokes. And using movement to adjust your playstyle is one of many things that I, and I'm sure many others, still need to work on. Professionals are very good at speeding the match up or slowing it down, and a large part of that comes through movement.
But the thing is, they don't stick to just one playstyle, and you don't have to either.
You can try a mix of both, or you could go for whichever one you feel is most appropriate for the situation at hand. Because at the end of the day, movement is one of the purest forms of player expression in fighting games.
And that's why so many people get upset when movement options are either restricted or just straight up removed. Because movement is not only one of the most important aspects of fighting games, in a lot of ways, movement is fighting games.